Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode, we talked about the man with zero fear, Pentagon Jr. and his master Vampiro. But today, we're going to talk about the guy that was probably affected most by these two, and more specifically by Pentagon, that being Superfly.
Yeah, Superfly, an interesting character in the sense that he never really did much throughout like the first half of the first season. Then he gets his arm broken by Pentagon, and he goes Rudo in the process. And he does have a program with Sexy Star where he actually ends up getting a win over her. And I think that was his only win that season. I think maybe one of two, because I think he also won that Tobe Atomicos matchup. Because I think he was on the winning team of that.
Team
But yes,
Rudo, yeah.
yeah, Team Rudo. But yeah, I just feel like he really didn't have much of a pop the first season, and I've just got an interesting idea about what his second season may lead up to, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Nice. All right, well, let's get right into it then. We first saw Superfly in episode 7 of season 1 in a match against King Cuerno, and it was just kind of basically a squash match. King Cuerno was pretty dominant. I do remember Drago ended up kind of showing up in this match where kind of normally when you think of King Cuerno when he's scouting out his prey, he shows up at the top of the building that Phoenix got powerbombed through. But Drago showed up there during this match. But as far as Superfly himself goes, pretty much just kind of doing the job here, right?
Yep.
Then on the following episode, he was a participant in the 10-way match that Phoenix would end up winning. And then he was also in Aztec Warfare, but obviously did not win. Episode 11 was his first match against Pentagon, and this was the match where Vampiro was really, really into Pentagon, and talking about how he's this world-class fighter, and he needs to put more time in, and he might need better guidance and all that kind of stuff, and really just kind of a dominant performance here from Pentagon, and then Pentagon cut his promo afterwards talking down Chavo, who had just turned on him. Again, Superfly just kind of doing the job here, though. And then we get to episode 12, where we had the team of Argenis, Superfly, and Aerostar taking on the Crew, which they lost. And then in episode 15, we had Tejano versus Superfly, where Tejano won quite quickly, and then El Patron showed up, and we had a brawl. And then in episode 21, this is where things kind of really started getting interesting for Superfly, and he went from just being kind of a glorified jobber to actually having a storyline. We had a trio set up by Dario Cueto for the trios tournament that was Sexy Star, Superfly, and Pentagon. And they did end up losing in their first match, which was against the Family. But it's worth noting then that post-match, Pentagon was so angry, and I think Pentagon was actually the one that ate the pin in this match, but he was so angry that he wanted to sacrifice his own teammate, that being Superfly, and Sexy Star ended up making the save.
Well, just to kind of correct a little thing that you said there, I believe it was Superfly that ate the pin, which is why
Okay,
Pentagon
well
was angry
that
in the
would
first
make
place.
even more sense then.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, but this is where things really pick up, because then on the following episode we had Superfly versus Sexy Star, which was really odd at the time because they were good friends. They, the previous week Superfly needed help and Sexy Star saved him, and now they're up against each other for some reason. But then Cueto comes out and makes this a mask versus mask match.
Yeah, highly personal given the Lucha Libre culture and tradition. Dario Cueto throws all that out the window. He spits right in the face of it, and he says, well, this is about my entertainment. This is about violence. Kill each other for the sake of your pride.
And yeah, they pretty much do. And Sexy Star ends up coming out with the victory here, which means that Superfly has to lose his mask. So we had a very emotional moment with Sexy Star pulling his mask up over his head, them hugging, and him kind of pandering to the crowd a bit and kind of showing some pride. And then Pentagon comes out, throws Sexy Star out of the ring, and breaks Superfly's arm.
Yeah, Pentagon finally making that sacrifice. Sexy Star not able to help her friend Superfly. And just really one of the darker moments, I guess you could say, of this season of Pentagon sacrifices all leading up to this.
Absolutely. And then we went 2 full months without any Superfly on Lucha Underground before he made his return in what we thought would be him trying to get some revenge on Pentagon Jr. This was during the Pentagon Sexy Star submission match, but as it turns out, Superfly comes back for the sake of attacking Sexy Star and helping Pentagon to win.
Yeah, this was the whole thing that we joked about where Sexy Star was so happy. I'm doing it, Superfly. I'm doing it, and he turns on her. So yeah.
What are you doing? Why are you looking at me like that? Superfly, Superfly, no, no.
Oh, it gets me every time. But yeah, definitely a very interesting turn. Pun completely intended there. So there you go.
So then that was on episode 31. Episode 32 was all night long, so nothing else happened on that other than an amazing match. But then in episode 33, we actually opened up with a sit-down interview with Vampiro, Superfly explaining why he went after Sexy Star. And yes, he does acknowledge, yeah, sure, Pentagon broke my arm, but I blame Sexy Star because she took my mask, and an arm can heal, but I'm never going to have that mask back. I have dishonored my heritage, etc., etc.
I really like that because I think it stays true again to that lucha libre culture, to the idea that, you know, my pride and my honor is exalted above all else. And I really did like that logic. So yeah, it made the story a bit more interesting.
Yeah, and then we got a match between the two, which, I mean, Superfly might have a little bit more of a storyline now, but I don't think he actually won a single match all season, did he?
No.
So Sexy Star gets the better of him here again, and then we see him in that Atomicos match, as you were talking about, which you did even say this was his only win of the season, with Johnny Mundo, Hernandez, and Jack Evans alongside.
Wait,
This is because Mundo got the big pinfall, but he also had a handful of tights. So even this victory has some taint on it.
Okay, I do have to make a correction though. This I know for sure this is Superfly's second win because he did beat Sexy Star in one match. This is his first, formal match as Rudo. Where he lost to Sexy Star was for the Gift of the Gods medallion.
Oh, so then the match that I was just talking about where I said, oh yeah, he's a jobber, he might have actually won that one, and I just don't have it in my notes.
Yeah, he won at least 2 matches once he went Rudo. And then he lost, the Gift of the Gods match because that's when Sexy Star debuted La Mystica. And
then that was actually on the following episode. We have Superfly versus Sexy Star for a medallion. Sexy Star wins via La Mystica. And then we had Marty the Moth come out and try to take the medallion, and Sexy Star won with La Mystica again.
Yeah. So that's pretty much Superfly's season because I don't think he really did anything else.
He did have one more appearance in episode 37 for the final Aztec medallion that originally belonged to Phoenix. He was in that match.
Okay, but obviously
Phoenix obviously won. So, yeah, I mean, Superfly, I think that he's a good in-ring worker. I think that it's one of those things where in Lucha Underground, like, sure, you have jobbers, but I feel like Superfly is kind of that higher up level enhancement talent. Like, I would put him kind of on the same level as like an Argenis, where they're entertaining in the ring. You know you're going to get a good match out of them, but they really just flat out aren't written to win matches ever.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm glad you said that because I just want to get right into the season 2 booking and I hope nobody gets upset with me because I know for all of these, I've really tried to come up with creative avenues, this and that. And I hate to feel like I'm shortchanging Superfly, but I'm just going to say right now, I actually see him dying this season.
Wow.
I only use that term because, again, we saw Bale get his face eaten off.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not even going to question that people can die in Lucha Underground. I just think it's interesting that that's the route you would go with Superfly. And now I think that the question on everyone's mind is, well, if Superfly is dying, who's doing the killing?
Well, see, I do have a little bit of a story for that, so we can give Superfly something before he's on his way out.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what then. I feel like you've been going first for these last few times, so let me just get my stuff out first.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, I have a very simple plan for Superfly. To start season 2, because he's already gotten to the point that, like, okay, Sexy Star, I beat you, and you beat me a couple of times, and I'm still kind of angry at you, but I'm not even going to bother pursuing that venue. He's going to go after Pentagon, and he's going to be one of Pentagon's first big sacrifices of season 2.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think that not even if, when Pentagon beats him and sacrifices him, I think that it would be interesting if Pentagon had an apprentice of his own. Vampiro's apprentice is Pentagon, Pentagon's master is Vampiro. Well, why do we have to stop at 2? Why can't we add someone else to do Pentagon's bidding that Pentagon doesn't necessarily want to do now that the master, Vampiro, has told Pentagon, look, man, you're ready. I don't need to teach you anything else. I might still be your master, but, you're good to go. Well, let's make Pentagon the master now. Let's make Pentagon Superfly's master.
Very interesting. I like
Superfly
that.
goes running back to Pentagon saying, man, you ruined my life. You broke my arm. You made me go insane. Now I don't know what to do with myself. I'm going to kill you. And they have a match, and it's very physical, and maybe Superfly puts up a little bit more of a fight than anyone else has against Pentagon. But ultimately, Pentagon Jr. is Pentagon Jr., and he destroys, which is what he does. And
Right.
he beats Superfly, breaks his arm, and then after the match, Superfly is crawling over to Pentagon on one arm and both knees and asking for help or forgiveness or for a master or just asking him to lead him so that he can be more like Pentagon. Because obviously, if you can't beat him, join him.
I like that idea. No, I like that logic of Superfly just hitting rock bottom and
Yeah.
then having to go to Pentagon and just be like, please, please help me. Please give me something that I could cling on to. No, it seems to fit the psychology of Superfly perfectly, actually.
And this way, you don't have to necessarily have Pentagon be perfect. Because the thing with Pentagon is, if it was up to me, he wouldn't lose a single match in all of season 2. Well, this way, you can have maybe like a tag team match where Superfly eats the pin, therefore giving Pentagon a loss.
Yeah, that is true. Yes, I think that works out quite nicely, actually.
Yeah. So, and then obviously you can have the scene afterwards where Pentagon tortures the shit out of him for losing.
Right.
But in general, I think that it would be very interesting to give Pentagon an inferior entity for him to be the master of.
Right, right. I like that. You know what? I think you're giving Superfly a lot more credit than I gave him, so I appreciate that.
And then
I
I
think,
would
yeah.
say my sort of end game with that, maybe the match that I have planned between Pentagon and Puma in the cage match, I would maybe have Superfly be the reason Pentagon loses. I would have Superfly turn on Pentagon. It would be his first time being a Technico since before he was unmasked. And yeah, that would be kind of my big moment for Superfly in season 2, is he would turn on Pentagon to help Puma to beat him in the cage match.
Yeah, you know what? I could really see that. I'm really glad that you got all this mileage out of Superfly because it's more mileage than I conceived getting out of him for my second
Well,
season.
if I'm being completely honest, John, the reason that I got this kind of mileage out of him is because this is where I thought they were going in season 1. Because when Superfly first came back unmasked, he had some black and white face paint on his cheek. And I was thinking, oh my god, I wonder if like Pentagon's face paint is the complete version of what Superfly has got started on his face right now. So
Right.
like
Okay.
what if like Superfly has joined whatever league Pentagon is in now and he's just like the apprentice version to what Pentagon has already become. And really the fact that they didn't do it just kind of gave me the ammo to pull the trigger and be like, yeah, we're going to do it then.
Very nice, very nice. I'm gonna be really quick about mine because obviously there's not really much you can do with a man once he's dead. I could see Superfly starting out the season, on kind of a losing streak. Maybe I would want him to lose to complete jokes too, because I want him to lose to to really feel that desperation. And by jokes, I mean people that you wouldn't really perceive as going anywhere, like in the main event of this and that, like Masquerita Sagrada, Pimpinela Escarlata, performers like that, Ben Gawa maybe, who I could see doing a few cool things in season 2 potentially. And he's just really at the end of his rope. So then I would want him to go to Katrina or, to the faction of death and be like, hey, I see that you guys are running things. I want a taste of that. I want a chance at that kind of power. Katrina says fine, but to earn that kind of power, you've got to make sacrifices. You've got to do something in return. And maybe this would be around the time that Puma's really hot, like he's come back after his pilgrimage. Mill's kind of sweating a little bit. The power star's like, hey, if you can take care of Puma, we'll let you run with us and whatever, you'll feel that power. And just to give you a little taste, maybe she guides Superfly with the stone or something, or she puts him under the influence of the stone just to give him a little bit of an edge against Puma, so you could at least buy that he could take Puma to the limit. Ultimately, I would have Puma beat him, and then Katrina, just fed up and getting really angry that Puma's doing this well and he's a legitimate threat to Mill's title and his power, just decides to kill Superfly. Superfly may beg off like, please, give me another chance, whatever. Katrina will
Right.
feign considering it. She'll be like, oh, okay, I'll let you live. And then I'll be like, oh, thank you, thank you. And then, like, a few seconds later, he thinks he's secure. He lets his guard down, and she pretty much sucks the life force out of Superfly. I know there was a comment, I think it was from Wrestling Fan LC, I'm assuming, maybe somebody else, when we did our Katrina Spotlight, saying that if she killed somebody, she'd leave them like a husk. It wouldn't just be a taste of the soul, she'd consume the whole thing. That's what I see for Superfly here. She just completely takes the life force. There is nothing left, and that's how we write him off. And I only say that because I do think he's solid in ring, but I mean, given what was established in the first season, he only won 2 matches. That was after, going Rudo, and didn't really do much after that. Didn't even make the Ultima Lucha card. Has always been kind of really under the radar. So I think you make him the first casualty of death, because I think he's not a big enough name where it would be a detriment to do it, and yet I think he's the perfect kind of name to show that they will go to any length to maintain their power. So I think he's perfect fodder for their kind of heat, for their kind of image to be maintained. So
John, I do like the idea of killing off a certain guys on the undercard next season, but my one problem that could prove to be a bit of an obstacle for Superfly specifically is that he isn't necessarily a Lucha Underground guy. He's a AAA guy. He's somebody that was really pretty much well known in AAA before Lucha Underground started. So
right.
I don't know if that would cause some kind of an internal clash or something like that, but I don't know if they would want to take one of these AAA guys that were given to them and just be like, we don't want him anymore. We're going to kill him off.
Well, I think it would serve them right, giving out AAA's treating certain
Well,
guys, but
right, and I
regardless.
don't disagree with that necessarily, but it's one of those things where I think it's more likely that if anyone's going to die in season 2, it's going to be somebody that Lucha Underground signed specifically for them rather than somebody that was given to them by AAA.
And I could respect that. I could
Because
appreciate
that's kind
that
of
and
what happened in
understand that.
season 1. Like the crew guys are all Lucha Underground only. Those guys don't really show up much in AAA, and especially Bale specifically never shows up in AAA. He's not even a AAA talent from what I understand. So to me, it's more like the sort of freelance guys that they are likely to kill than the guys that are from AAA.
I just, and I can understand that, and that does kind of suck, because I'm just being honest, I really don't see anything for Superfly here. I'm not
Right.
going to lie and be like,
It's
oh,
weird
I see
because
him doing
Lucha
this.
Underground has jobbers, but there are kind of tiers of jobbers. Like I would say that the very, very bottom tier of jobbers would be like Vinny Massaro, Famous B, Ricky Mandel, El Mariachi Loco, right?
Yeah,
And then kind of the next stage up from that would be like Argenis, Mascarita Sagrada, Pimpinela Escarlata, and maybe even Bengala, depending.
maybe, yeah.
And then kind of above that is no real jobbers anymore, and that's when you're getting into guys that they're actually putting effort into and trying to make compelling and stuff.
Right, right.
Like I
I
would
mean,
say right above that notch would be like Superfly, Aerostar, that kind of tier of maybe like from I guess if you just look at season 1, maybe like Jack Evans, since he lost a lot, even though he was still entertaining doing it.
right. I mean,
Kill Shot I think fits in that category, and Davari,
right. I
kind of
mean,
like the lower mid card almost.
right. Maybe because I've even seen it. If you want me to be honest, when you look at like that undercard, like the jobbers, all that stuff, I
Vinny
could even
Massaro,
see.
Famous B, El
Right.
Mariachi
I, I,
Loco.
I could even see what was I gonna say? I could even see Famous B, his stock climbing in the second season, to be honest. So maybe Famous B and
Okay,
Superfly have a brief little program,
I like that.
at best. Because I really enjoyed Famous B's performance in that battle royal for the last medallion. He did far better than anybody expected him to. And that could be a sign like, okay, he's doing something here. Maybe we'll give him a bit of a shine in the second season. But I don't know, man. Superfly is really kind of frustrating, especially now that you told me like he's a AAA guy, which kind of infuriates me, because it's like, okay, well, I guess I can't kill him, because I really just don't see what he can do. He's that guy that I think is supposed to elevate other guys. Maybe what we know about some signings for season 2 that are going to be happening. I just think you want to do something with Superfly all season. Anybody that's debuting or anybody that needs to get over, just feed them to Superfly. Just make them that hand that they get the win, and they kind of start making that ascent up the ladder. That to me, I think, is his function for season 2. So not even really any specific matches or any kind of booking, because I just don't see any end game. He's not going to make it to Ultima Lucha. I don't see that at all. So I'm not even going to speculate like what his Ultimate Lucha match is because I just don't see it happening. But I
Yeah.
do see him being that reliable hand
Yeah.
that, kind of
And
establishes
that's a
guys coming
good
to the
thing
table.
too, though. Like, you can't have a functioning promotion without the jobbers.
You certainly can't. So I think anybody coming in the temple, and again, you and I already know some names that are coming
So
in.
basically, you're
Yeah.
saying you want Superfly to be 2010 Christian.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think that's his role perfectly. If I can't kill him, then I'll just maximize his utility, his place on the card and everything else by him being not necessarily a gatekeeper because I think it's giving him too much credit, but it's like, okay, I'm the guy that you show all your stuff off to the temple when you
Right.
start making your own claim.
Like, I would
So,
say,
yeah.
like, in NXT this year, like, Tyler Breeze was the gatekeeper, whereas Superfly would be more like the Ty Dillinger.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I'm the guy that you have your exhibition matches with, more or less.
Yes. Or I
Yeah.
guess, like, if you were looking, like, less recent, you could say he's like the CJ Parker.
Yeah, exactly, Ashton. And again, I'm
The
not
guy
trying to.
that
Yeah,
you put a little bit of effort into just to get the fans to care about a little bit, and then just feed him to everyone.
exactly. And again, that's not meant to shortchange him or to be
Right. No,
creatively apathetic.
it's not a
But
bad
yeah,
place to be, because he's still providing a service. He's still got a job that he needs to do in more ways than one. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that that's a really good kind of wrapping up point for us on this episode, because Superfly is an entertaining character, but I think that you, me, Chris Joseph, everyone involved in the Lucha Underground Temple knows kind of where Superfly's place most naturally is, and they're going to keep him there, and it makes sense. And if you want to kill him off, I don't. I personally wouldn't have any kind of an opposition to that, but I think AAA might.
right, right. So I'm glad at least like I just came out and said, all right, if we can't kill him, which I do think would be a great narrative possibility for the faction of death, but if we can't do that, then again you just make him that reliable hand. Because yeah, and maybe he'll prove me wrong. That's the beautiful thing about Lucha Underground. If I can see Famous Beast climbing this season, there is sure as hell is no reason why Superfly can't do the same. Lucha Underground can take a nobody one week and turn him into a guy like, okay, you have an interesting story the next. So, Superfly could prove me wrong, but we'll just wait and see.
Absolutely. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, on our next episode on Thursday, we've been talking about them quite a bit, and now we're going to actually do an in-depth discussion on them. The undercard of Lucha Underground. On Thursday, we will be talking about Vinny Massaro. We will be talking about Famous B, and Argenis, and El Mariachi Loco, and Ricky Mandel. Even though 3 of those guys are currently going to be Disciples of Death, I think John would agree with me when I say that I don't think that them being Disciples of Death means that they are only allowed to be the Disciples of Death in Season 2, right, John?
Exactly.
So we are going
Exactly.
to talk about those 5 guys, because to me, those are kind of the undercard guys. And then I'm just gonna, you know what? We've been teasing episodes long enough. There are so few people left. I'm just gonna spell it out for you, big cast style. We're gonna do the undercard guys next, and then on Saturday will be Mascarita Sagrada. Tuesday,
Nice.
next Tuesday will be Pimpinela Escarlata. Next Thursday we are taking we're taking the next Thursday off because Christmas Eve. And then
Right.
the following Saturday will be Bengala. And then the following Tuesday will be Marty Martinez. And then we're taking the following Thursday off because New Year's Eve. And then the final episode on the following Saturday will be the man from season 1, Prince Puma. So that's the rest of Lucha Spotlight episodes. A lot of characters that we haven't talked enough about, I think, especially those last 3, Bengala, Marty, and Puma. And I'm sure we're going to have some interesting things to say about Mascarita and Pipinella and these undercard guys on Thursday as well. So that all that is what you can expect in the future for Luchador Spotlight, all leading up to eventually, hopefully it gets here sooner than it feels like it will, January 27th, season 2 premiere of Lucha Underground. And of course, in the meantime, this coming Sunday, because there are no pay-per-views, we are going to be taking the time to do not necessarily a frame by frame, but almost a frame by frame breakdown of the season 2 trailer, which looks incredible. We know that PJ Black is going to be on Lucha Underground season 2. There has also been a lot of stuff leaked from the Lucha Underground Twitter that isn't necessarily spoilers, because if they want you to know about it, you can't call it spoilers. including Rey Mysterio being a part of season 2. So some very interesting news coming out in the Lucha Underground atmosphere that we have a lot to talk about. But until then, taking a step back from Lucha Underground, we do have our NXT TakeOver London live reactions coming out tomorrow. The show starts at 3. Expect live reactions to be out by 6. Those times are Eastern. Subtract 3 hours if you're on the West Coast. Add 5 hours if you're in the UK. So we will see you all for those. And until then, just keep on waiting for that Lucha, baby.